Is Brewsday Tuesday here on 105.3 The Bear. Drez here alongside with Huck from Huck's Beer Buzz.
It's Huck.
Huck, how you doing, Huck?
Huck is still good.
Good. Glad to hear, man. We're feeling pretty good. We're doing it's a pale ale kind of a day here on Brewsday Tuesday. We already untapped the Star Hill Grateful Pale Ale, and now we're moving on to another one. What else did you bring me, man?
Well, in the spirit of competition, just a few miles down the road from Star Hill, we have Blue Mountain Brewery, and they make a beer called the Full Nelson.
I was tapping the glass. I was trying to get the pour on there. I don't know if you could hear it or not.
I can see it.
I can see it, yeah. I can see it and I can taste it. That's
but
what
you
matters.
can't see it because you're on the radio, folks.
Sorry, guys, but trust me, we're drinking.
I'll put some video up on my YouTube site.
Yeah.
So Blue Mountain makes this Virginia Pale Ale. So I thought we would, kind of head-to-head, have a little competition here. I like both breweries. I got to tell you, though, I'm liking this Blue Mountain Pale Ale.
I haven't sipped it yet, but going back to how you're saying how they're like basically almost neighbors. Remember how I mentioned with the Star Hill and the Grateful Pale Ale, how I got to go visit Star Hill when I was in Charlottesville visiting my buddy. Well, what we did was this whole Brew Ridge Parkway tour, which I'm sure I don't have to tell you, but for those of y'all that don't know, the Brew Ridge Parkway Tour consists of a number of breweries that happen to just be bam, bam, bam on this nice little strip. You got like Bold Rock Cider out there, which I know it's not a brewery, but Bold Rock's out there. Wolf Creek, I do believe.
Wolf something, yeah.
I think it's Wolf Creek.
The Devil's Backbone.
Devil's Backbone is where you start, and then I got a meal there. It was pretty
good. It's really good food.
Very good, and Blue Mountain's definitely on that category too. So we swung by the Blue Mountain. There was this huge, almost like a big old farmhouse on a big plot of land. A lot of people there because it was on the weekend. Everybody was having a good time.
They grow their own hops right there in front.
Yeah, right there. That's one of the things that's great about having it on a farm, right?
Yeah, if you're driving from Richmond back to Blacksburg, you can slide off the interstate at Crozet, hit the Blue Mountain for some food and just a taste of beer because you're driving.
You are driving.
And back on the interstate, top of Afton Mountain.
I highly, highly recommend doing that. I mean, we made a day of it. I made a weekend out of it. I think I hit like 12 breweries in 3 days that weekend.
Ooh, that's good.
It was a good weekend, no doubt. But yeah, even if you're just cruising up, from back home or whatever, you're from up north, for school or whatever, you could swing on down the Brew Ridge Parkway, hit up the Devil's Backbone or something, grab some food, grab a couple brews. It's
beautiful there. They have a festival in the fall I go to. I think they're moving it to the Locken site, but it's really just so nice up in there. I worked at Wintergreen for 6 years. I love the mountains. And you add the craft beer to it, and it's perfect.
Yeah, man. There's a lot of cool stuff out there. So let's get back to it. We got the Full Nelson. You're already sipping it. I'm going to give it a go right now. I just checked. I have untapped this in the past, but as we know, taste buds tend to change. So I had rated it a solid 3. So that's like an average beer, which I feel like I'll probably give it more than that. Since I've been doing Untapped more and more, your grading scale, you kind of get to find exactly where you want them. Now I grade a 3 as just like your average beer, and I feel like this is probably better than your average beer, isn't it, Huck?
Yeah, and there's more to it in this particular case. When they start out, it's one of their first beers. And I used to say that whenever I opened a Full Nelson, I didn't know what I was going to get because there was a good batch, then there was a not-so-good batch, and there's an excellent batch. And I got to say that drinking this today, it's probably been at least a year since I had one. This is really good. I think they've really figured out the recipe on this.
So like you're saying, I mean, especially just like wine. I mean, different years for different wines, they'll taste a little bit different.
Every batch is different.
Every batch is a little different, but what's key is when they can keep it consistent.
Correct.
That's the goal. But you never know. So sometimes a mouse falls into the winter. Whatever. No,
well, that big giant building you're talking about started out as like a house, and they were making the beer in the 2-car garage, and it went from there. So now it's a full-scale production brewery.
So it will be a little different. They're different equipment.
Much more consistent.
Yes, much more consistent for sure. Another thing that I noticed, though, is that we went from the Star Hill that came in a bottle versus the Full Nelson in a can. Now, what's your now, I will say this right off the bat. We poured the Full Nelson, from the can into the glass because and I'm sure you'll agree with me here, you should always drink beer out of glass.
I would agree.
And ideally, even from a bottle into a glass to help unleash the aromas and stuff.
There are circumstances where certain bars that you need to drink it out of the bottle. Otherwise, they take you out to the dumpster. So, but other than that, you
Yes.
should drink it out of a glass.
Drink
if
it out of a
possible.
glass if possible. If you're at your buddies and they hand you one, you don't have a pint glass.
Yeah,
That's the
you
way
know,
it is.
yeah.
Same with cans, but I certainly prefer with a number of different brews. If they got it in a can versus a bottle, I usually reach for the bottle.
Well, nowadays a lot of venues don't allow bottles. There's some thought that the cans keep it fresher because there's no light. You don't have to worry about
They can
light.
shine in on it.
Right.
That's why, and for those of you that don't know, that's why a lot of places, that's why you get the darker bottles versus
Correct.
a clear bottle. Is for that very
Of course,
reason.
the darker beer, the less skunkable it is. But the point is that the can technology is better than it was, and because of the fact that people don't like glass in certain venues, parks, and other places, the bottles are good. And I think that's a good point that you brought this up, that we're having the two. And I think this is as good a beer out of the can as the other beer was out of the bottle.
I agree too. It tastes fresh. I don't think that having it out of a can, it's really, to me, it's drinking it out of the can. I think that makes it the difference. If you pour it into a glass, I'm all for it. But if I had to choose between drinking out of a can or a bottle, I'd say bottle all day.
Yeah, I mean, even when I was a young man, I would buy my beer in bar bottles and return them. Of course, I was in the restaurant industry then, so it was easier.
Are you getting a nickel back for every bottle?
I worked there. I just take it back.
just save a bottle.
Don't say anything.
Oh yeah, I won't tell the.
My old boss is listening. I'm in trouble.
Yeah, from how long ago? From where is this?
I'm not saying.
But yeah, so that's it's just another thing to think about when it comes to the brews. And but let's get back to the Full Nelson. Blue Mountain Brewery. They got a lot of great brews out there. I'm sure you've had a number of them. What you got another favorite from Full Nelson?
No, from Blue Mountain. I like their
Blue Mountain,
Their
yeah,
Kolsch
sorry.
151 is probably my favorite beer.
The
They make.
Kolsch, yes, I've
Yeah.
had the Kolsch
Yeah.
too.
But I'm going to give this. I'm going to give this the same score because I don't want friends fighting. I'm going to give it a 3.75. I think it's a little thicker. The hops are not as pure, I think, as they were in the Grateful. But the beer's a little bit more mouthfeel, a little creamier on my mouth. I like the way it slides
Seems
down
to be
my
a little
throat.
smoother too.
Yeah,
A little bit.
yeah.
It is just a little bit kind of fresh, smoother. So let me let's dive into since we're doing the pale ale thing. We've had two pale ales. What's your take on pale ales? What is the deal with the pale ale versus your other brews? You got your IPAs. You got your
It's the moderate hops.
All right.
I'll just 2 words: moderate hops. A pale ale has moderate hops. Some have more, some have less, but they always have hops. So you're going to have a beer that's not overwhelming. It's not usually too high. I'm just thinking back in my head if I ever heard of an Imperial Pale Ale. No, there's probably one out there, and somebody's going to correct me on this. But
Yeah.
it's not a beer I see all the time.
It's not common.
It's a plain beer. It's a vanilla beer
It's
for craft beer.
It's your basic beer of a beer.
Correct.
Exactly.
And
so
you
it's
can
nothing
always
too,
go to it. I mean, I grab a 6-pack of Dale's Pale Ale.
Yeah.
Let's go to Colorado here for a second. I'll just grab or North Carolina now for that matter. I'll grab a 6-pack of that. I'll grab a 6-pack of the Grateful. I'll grab a 6-pack of the Full Nelson, and I'll take it and go watch the football game.
That is what's good about a pale ale. There is a certain beer for every occasion. This is your beer for every occasion.
Yes.
It's just your generic beer, and it's kind of like it's on the lines of an IPA, but it's not there yet. It's not like it's like here's your IPA up here. I know this is radio, but I got my arm up in the air. Hops wise, it's down here. It's not too over the top. It's just your average beer.
That's right.
That's the pale ale. So if you're not a hoppy person, pale ales are just a good go-to.
Exactly.
That's the name of the
You're
game.
really not going to offend anyone, and we're all going to have a good time.
Well, I think it is time for me to give my Untapped rating. By the way, Drez Drinks on Untapped, Huck's Beer Buzz on
Huck's
Untapped.
Beer
You can
Buzz.
see what we're rating these beers. You can see what we've also gave ratings for. I mean, I've been on it for maybe a year or two now. You've been on it. When did you discover Untapped?
12/25/2010, I think.
Does it have like the start? I guess the first
Yeah,
time.
that
you
does
check
have
it
your
in,
first
you can
dates.
see.
I've been on there 5 years, 6
Yeah,
years.
so he's got a couple of Untaps on me,
Yeah.
but and you also probably try a lot more than I do, so you can get an idea of what we like, where our taste buds range from. But it is a pretty fun app. I was really glad when I
you
discovered
can
that.
friend us on there.
Yes, you can friend us. Yes, that's the main
You
thing
can
I was trying
comment
to get to.
on our taste.
You can comment. You can toast us.
You can
That's
toast
always
us,
fun.
Tell us we're stupid if we're drinking the wrong beer.
And I know this might sound like we're getting a kickback from Untapped. Not at all. We're just beer enthusiasts, and it's a pretty handy app.
No, actually, I'd say bad things about them sometimes, but in all, I think I like the app.
What's bad about it?
Oh, sometimes they get overwhelmed when people are doing things, and sometimes
Well, see, because you're doing your own beer
Right.
and having to submit
If you-
it and do all that.
right. If you go
jazz.
to like a big beer convention or big tasting you can't get through sometimes. It's like anything else, Sometimes you can't get through on the phone. Everybody's on their phones.
Try to call now, but nope, we're not going to answer.
I invited 5,000 people to my beer festival to look at their phones.
Yeah.
Look at them. They're doing it.
That's a topic for a whole nother day. Let's not even get started on that one. Well, as for me and my Untapped rating of the Full Nelson Virginia Pale Ale, I don't think I'm going to give it quite as good of a rating as the Star Hill.
You don't have to. We're different.
I know we are different. I originally gave it a 3. It's definitely better than your average beer, so I'll give it more than that. I'll probably give it a 3.5.
3.5.
3.5. That's a solid
rating.
beer. It's a solid beer. You really can't go wrong. It's not one. I mean, when there's a million other options, it's probably not the one I'm going to go to, but. I'm not gonna shun it. Somebody offers me one named Huck. I'm not gonna say I'm not drinking
another one over there. I think you'll probably take it.
Oh yeah. Speaking of which, let's take a break. We're gonna take a break. Huck, as always, I appreciate you coming in, man.
Good to be here.
Brewsday Tuesday. You can find Huck at Huck's Beer Buzz on the Twitter, hucksbeerbuzz.com. And, of course, like we were saying, if you want to check out the Untapped app, if you haven't already downloaded, Huck's Beer Buzz on there. You can friend them. You can friend me, Drez Drinks. And we're doing Brewsday Tuesdays, man. So, actually... And let me throw this out there. If you are a brew enthusiast and you maybe have some suggestions on some topics we should cover, some brews we should try, you can definitely send those our way via email, Drez at 1053thebear.com. Quick break, and we'll be back to the tunes right here on 105.3 The Bear.